The following program may contain coarse language, violence, nudity, mature subject matter, or scenes which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, one and all. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. Now, for the many listeners who have asked me over the past couple of weeks where St. Catharines is, because they said, well, Rob, we were listening to you when you were in Hamilton. We listened to you when you were in Crystal Beach. We're now listening to you in St. Catharines. Where is St. Catharines? All right, St. Catharines is on the shore of Lake Ontario. It's in between Hamilton and Niagara Falls, Ontario. In fact, we're about 15 minutes from the U.S. international border that goes between Ontario and the state of New York. Actually, I started my radio career here in St. Catharines some 33 years ago at 1220 CHSC. So here we are 33 years later. Same show, same town, different networks. Yeah. It's a circle of life. Anyway, this hour we're going to be speaking to Samuel CHONG. We're going to be talking about spirituality, the paranormal, ETs, UFOs, and much more. So joining me now is our friend Samuel CHONG. And Samuel, welcome to the X Zone.
Thank you for having me here.
How are you doing today?
Very good. Thank you.
Good. Samuel, tell us a little bit about yourself and your quest into doing the investigative work that you're doing within the paranormal.
Yes, I was born in China. Since I was young, I was always looking for answers of the paranormal. So in China, there were a lot of magazines about paranormal topics, such as the UFOs, the Bermuda Triangle,
right,
the Great Pyramid. I always wanted to know why and for what reasons the Great Pyramid of Egypt was built. So I was looking for ETs to give us the answers. So in my subconscious mind, I always wanted to get information from ET contactees who have had such experiences, because I thought that if the ETs have more advanced civilizations, and they should know all the answers. So I found this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, that changed my life.
Now, there's a prophecy that you want to talk about, and I cannot figure out how to pronounce it. So
Thiaoouba.
I'm sorry?
Thiaoouba.
Thiaoouba.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that prophecy?
Well, Thiaoouba is actually the name of the planet in which the author, Michel Desmarquet, was taken to for 9 days and then came back. The book is actually a misnomer because it doesn't contain any prophecies, but it's actually a book of warnings from the ETs to us about the ways how we live today.
This planet, where exactly is it?
It is somewhere in our galaxy, a few light years away. But what's interesting is that this planet has a very, very advanced civilization, a Category 9 planet, versus us on Earth. Earth is a Category 1 planet. So on that planet, the people there can perform all the miracles. They don't age at all. They're always looking like in their 30s. They can perform like resurrections, just like Jesus did. And they can levitate. They can communicate via telepathy. They can do all different kinds of things.
Now, why do you believe that this planet really does exist?
Because the book has very specific information, so detailed that I really looked into them, and I verified a lot of the facts contained in the book, and also a lot of the answers given by the book are really reasonable and resonate in my mind that those are the answers of the paranormal events. For example, it talks about the Bermuda Triangle, why so many planes and ships disappear. The reason was given by the book that there's a parallel universe that really sucks into the ships and planes that near that portal, or what they call like like a vortex. And then when they are sucked into the parallel universe, they normally don't get out unless they find a way out, and the time stops in the parallel universe. And the author Michel Desmarquet actually experienced what it's like to be in a parallel universe where time stops, where people don't feel any pain, and he actually saw a lot of people wearing medieval clothes, and also savages, like people who he couldn't communicate with.
So, what are some of the specific verifiable facts in this book that you've discovered?
One of them is actually the effects of blue light on bacteria and viruses. Before Michel Desmarquet was taken onto their planet, the ETs disinfected him by yellow light and blue light. And I did some research. Harvard Medical School had a paper on the effects of blue light. It says that it has antiviral, antibacterial effects. And this is one thing. The other thing is that it talks about NASA releasing hundreds of millions of needles into space in the 60s. And then the needles disappeared. I looked that up. It's actually Project Westford. According to this book, the needles was taken away by the ETs because they believed that the needles were harmful to the people on Earth. So they intentionally took the needles away. This is actually documented by NASA, in which they failed at that experiment in the 60s.
So let me understand this. NASA put needles into space?
Yes, they were thinking that by putting the copper needles into space, they would somehow get better receptions in the telecommunication system. This is the whole purpose of Project Westford. So to improve the telecommunication systems on Earth, but they failed. Somehow the needles didn't get released, or the needles disappeared.
Now, when you're talking needles, are you talking syringes?
Those are just not really syringes, but copper, very thin copper kind of shaped needles that were aimed at getting the signals reflected back onto the Earth.
Okay. And I also understand that one of the verifiable facts that you found in this book was concerning human energy fields, or auroras.
Yes, it talks at length about the human energy field. And I did a lot of research on that because there's also a NASA scientist called Barbara Brennan, who wrote several books on the human energy field. And I also met a few people who could see the colors of auras. And some of them are still alive, like Rosalind Brewery, and also like Sean Haribans in Texas. And I also have a few friends who can just tell how a person's personality is and how a person's health is just by looking at the colors of the auras. And in ancient Chinese medicine, there were documented anecdotes in which doctors could see the colors of auras. This is what the Chinese people call the energy color, 气色. So this is far more interesting than what we know nowadays, because it's ancient Chinese medicinal textbook talking about auras.
I believe that people can see the auras subconsciously without even thinking, and that this is what gives a first impression when the person meets another person. And that, for example, the red aura is anger, blue is loyalty, and so on. Green is envy, and so on. But,
yes, it did.
But yeah, go ahead, son.
And actually, I've been doing some research on making an aura camera. I have my friend who can see aura colors, just to draw what he sees on different photos. He can see the colors more vividly on black and white photos compared to colored photos.
Fascinating. You've wondered about the Great Pyramid and how it was built and so on. I understand that within this book, it also talks about the Great Pyramid. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, according to the book, the author was told by the ETs that the Great Pyramid of Egypt was actually built 17,000 years ago by a great learned man called Thoth, originally from Atlantis. He built the Great Pyramid using anti-gravitational technologies combined with a supersonic vibrational system to cut the huge stones in a very precise manner. And the Great Pyramid of Egypt was built as a tool to capture the cosmic energy so that the users of the Great Pyramid could use the energy to communicate with people from another planet and also to make rain. It's actually very interesting because modern theories also indicate that the Great Pyramid is actually a tool to capture cosmic energy. And also they could use organ energy to make rains.
So what would they do with this energy that they caught, and how would they catch it?
Well, it's really because of the shape of the Great Pyramid. It just captures the energy naturally, the cosmic energy. And then they use the energy to as an engine, as an energy source to send out signals into outer space or sometimes onto other planets to communicate with the people there. They can also use this kind of energy to make clouds form on the sky. They have to use that combined with a metal alloy made of silver and also other metals to concentrate energy in a way into the atmosphere so that clouds would form and rain would fall.
Interesting. Now, who is this Toth again? I'm not sure I understood who he was.
Thoth is actually, people say he was like God in Egypt, but actually he was a human being. He was originally from Atlantis. Atlantis was a sunken continent. But the book also mentions about ancient civilizations such as Atlantis and also Lemuria. Back 14,500 years ago, the continent Lemuria sunk into the ocean. But before that happened, there existed a very advanced civilization there. People there knew how to use nuclear energy. They didn't have money. They just took what they needed in the market, and they knew how to build a pyramid that's 3 times as large as the Great Pyramid of Egypt. And they also colonized different places on Earth, such as North America and also Atlantis. Atlantis back then was actually there was a group of Caucasian people living on Atlantis. But then when Lemuria sunk into the ocean, Atlantis also disappeared later. The ancient technologies were lost, so people just didn't know how to build another pyramid anymore.
How come we haven't found any evidence to substantiate any claims of Lemuria or Atlantis?
There was actually documented stories on Lemuria. There was a person named James Churchward who wrote a book in the 1920s talking about his experience of traveling to India, in which he found ancient kind of ceramic plates that documented stories about the lost continent of Lemuria. And there were some very interesting facts that coincided with what the author Michel Desmarquet experienced in this book, in which he was taken into ancient history back 14,500 years ago when the continent of Lemuria sunk into the ocean. And also he was taken back into his past lives. He was shown his past 80 lives. Same thing as the author of that book, The Lost Continent of Lemuria, the author James Churchward. He was also taken back to see what his past lives were like. So this book is very interesting in the sense that it has a lot of similarities and similar stories with other books.
All right, stand by, Samuel. You and I have to take a break. Exonation Samuel Chong is our special guest, and we'll be back on the other side of this very short break. Don't go away. Hey, and welcome back, everyone. This is the excellent Samuel Chong is my very special guest. Samuel, please let our listeners know what your website is.
My website is chinasona.org/Thiaoouba, capital letter Thiaououba.
All right. Thank you for that, my friend. Samuel, what does the book say about ghosts or the paranormal? It seems like this book is a guide to knowing everything.
Yes, it talks about a lot of different topics, touches very superficially on different subjects, and it deserves a lot of in-depth research. It talks about ghosts as electrons. When a person dies, his physical body dies, but there's also the astral body. 81% of the astral body goes to the higher self after 3 days. So this is why Jesus resurrected 3 days after. There's a universal law of nature there. And then the other 19% remains in nature until they're recycled either by nature or goes back to the higher self. And the 19% that remains are actually what we see as ghosts. Because ghosts they are made of electrons, because of static forces, the electrons resemble the shape of the person when the person was alive. And also electrons have memories too. So this is why ghosts frequently haunt the places they loved or hated. So this is the explanation given by the book. It's really interesting because in Chinese stories, some people say if you don't like ghosts bother you, you just use a lighter to push the ghosts away. And actually, it makes sense because fire actually dispels electrons. So actually, when you think about ghosts being made of electrons, there's nothing to be afraid of. They just exist over there. They normally don't bother us.
Once you're gone, you're gone.
Yes. I mean,
yeah, Samuel, the book also talks about levitation, aura of human energy fields, and the supernatural abilities. Can you share the information with us?
well, the ETs from Thiaoouba, they are highly advanced people. They could levitate just using their mind power. And a lot of people doubt whether that could happen. But I found proof because there's a documentary by a magician named Dan White. He is a magician. He visited Nepal, a monk in Nepal, and filmed the monk levitating himself. As a magician himself, he couldn't figure out how the monk did it through magic. It has to be a different kind of magic. And this is very interesting because I think it's on History Channel. And also, after I began to talk about this book, some people began to contact me saying that they could levitate when they were young. They could just use their mind to do that. They have to go through some kind of fasting, and then also have to make the energy flow from here, and then the meridians have no kind of they don't have that. They have to like make them really flow like in a circle in order to do that. I also know Dr. Stephen Greer, he could levitate when he was young, and he just did that twice. He told everyone about it.
Stephen Greer can levitate?
Yes, he talked about that in his books, and also he talked about that in his meetings.
But has anybody ever seen Stephen Greer levitate?
That I don't know. He said he was on his own. He was by himself. So I don't know whether that's true, but it's in his book.
Interesting what Stephen Greer can do.
Yes.
How about prophecies? You know, it seems like this book has a little bit of Nostradamus, a little bit of let me see, Rial from the Raelians. What do they tell about prophecies? What did the aliens or the ETs talk about in this book when it comes to worldwide prophecies, and how correct have they been?
They actually can only see as far as 100 years ahead of us. They cannot see farther or more distant than that. They could see the past. They could actually visit the what they call Akashic records. They actually took the author to the past and saw how the continent of Lemuria sunk into the ocean, and also the author's past lives. In terms of prophecy, the book actually doesn't really mention what's going to happen in the future, but it tells a lot about what we need to do to improve our lives. They're saying that the financiers are actually controlling everything behind the scenes. What we see nowadays, what's happening, like the political conflicts between the parties, they're really just a stage. They're really just a puppets. They're just people behind them just trying to take advantage of the infightings of the two parties. And also they talk about the 12 families that control the financial system of the world. And also a lot of things that may happen in the future. It also talks about a lot of the things that happened in the past, the stories in the Bible, such as the stories of Sodom and Gomorrah, how the two cities were distracted by what they call Jehovah or God. They say they were directly involved in the destruction of the two cities because the people in the two cities were setting a very bad example to their neighbors. So that's why they have to distract the two cities. Speaking of that, the author Michel Desmarquet strongly suggests people to read the book of Enoch, saying that Enoch was also taken by the same group of ETs. Remember, Enoch, he was a great-grandfather of Noah. So after Enoch was instructed to write a book, a few decades later, Noah was told by the ETs to build an ark. So the author, Michel Desmarquet, was instructed to write a book. And you can do the math and to see what's going to happen a few decades later.
So what you're saying, it wasn't God who talked to Noah, it was the ETs.
Exactly. The ETs were directly involved in ancient times. Noah, Enoch, Sodom and Gomorrah, and also Moses and Jesus Christ. Actually, the book, what really took me into so much effort into meeting the author was the stories about Jesus Christ. According to this book, there are two Jesus Christs, one Jesus and one Christ. So it answers a lot of questions that I had in the past. Why there was no record of Jesus performing miracles before the age of 30. So what the book explains is that Jesus, the one who was born out of Virgin Mary, was actually born from the embryos implanted by the ETs in order to fulfill the prophecies that the Messiah was going to be born from a virgin. But because when a person is born that way, he has to go through what they call the river of oblivion, forgetting everything that happened in his past lives, forgetting all the abilities or knowledge to perform the miracles. So they really had to have one of their own to go into the body that looked like Jesus Christ, and then to be able to perform all the miracles so that people at that time would be able to believe the teachings of Jesus Christ. I found that very interesting because there are some people who say that Jesus went to India, and there was also the tomb of Jesus Christ in Shingo Village, Japan. This people can look it up on the internet. Remember, this book was written in the late 80s. There was no internet back then, and Michel Desmarquet, the author, never traveled to Japan or China in that way. And to that sense.
The internet wasn't back in the 80s, but there were many libraries in the 80s. So all this information could have been sourced there.
Right.
You and I have to take a break. Please stand by. And when we come back, more about this amazing book from our guest this hour, Samuel Chong. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. We're talking to Samuel Chong about a book. And how do you pronounce the book again?
Thiaoouba Prophecy.
What do we know about the author?
The other, he was a French Australian who was a landscaper. So he worked in a farm and he did a lot of agriculture related works. He didn't have a lot of education, and he just suddenly one night he was awoken in the middle of the night in 1987 in June, and there he had his experience. He was gone for 10 days. He spent 9 days on the planet and then came back. It would be really difficult for someone to make up everything that's written in the book, because if you take the totality of the circumstances and all the information, all the details in the book, it makes people wonder whether someone at his education level could just write a fantasy, write a science fiction like this, because there are a lot of truths in the book that people can nowadays are gradually uncovering, such as ancient lives on Mars, and also what the alien bases on the far side of the moon, the back side of the moon. Because according to this book, 300,000 years ago, there was life on Mars. But because the core of the Mars was cooling down, it was a dying planet. So life forms couldn't survive on Mars anymore. I found that very interesting because I did research what happens when the core of a planet cools down. So when that happens, it would lose the magnetic field, so that the atmosphere couldn't be captured by the electromagnetic field. So if there's no atmosphere, there's no oxygen, so life forms couldn't be sustained on that planet. Speaking of the backside of the moon, there were alien spaces on the backside of the moon, and that's because there was a group of people who landed on Lemuria back about 250,000 years ago, and they used the far side of the moon as a transfer station to transport some of their equipment and the people there from another planet called Arima X3. So this book goes into detail on where the black people, where the yellow people, where the Jewish people, where the Lemurians came from. Very specific information, and goes into great details. And I think it will be really difficult for someone to make everything up.
I don't know if it'd be very hard for somebody to make it up. Science fiction writers do a fascinating job about that. As far as the fact that he was a farmer, that really doesn't mean one thing or another to me, because we have the exact same story in Switzerland with Billy Meyer. The stories parallel each other, and maybe he's copying Meyer or Meyer's copying him.
One interesting about Meyer, I have to talk about this, because when I did research, I was thinking, like, if the ETs know, if they're really far advanced from us, that they should know everything, and the answers should resonate to what I would believe or do some research on. Billy Meyer, he says that the ETs told him that the Great Pyramid of Egypt was built by thousands or tens of thousands of slaves over a 20-year span, and that really doesn't make sense to me, because it just doesn't seem to be right, because thousands of slaves building the Great Pyramid in that precise manner, I don't think that's the way to do that. But this book talks about anti-gravitational technologies and supersonic vibrational system. So I think that makes more sense.
What does this book say about afterlife, reincarnation?
Well, when a person dies, the astral body leaves the physical body, and then there's going to be a life review process in which everything the person did would be shown to him or her, and then how the other people felt would be felt by him or her as well. So the person, him herself, would evaluate how he did in the lifetime, and then they would go through another cycle whether to be reborn or not. When it's time to be reborn, the new life will be shown to him or her, and then he would decide whether to take that or not. So there is definitely reincarnation. Actually, Jesus died on the cross and resurrected 3 days after. That's just to show people that there is life after death and there is reincarnation. But somehow the concept of reincarnation was removed by the councils of the church, the Catholic Church. And this book specifically named the 4 different Catholic Church councils that really changed the original Bible. So this book is so different from other books that is so specific on a lot of different facts. It actually listed a few chapters of the Bible in which people could go and look into and find the inconsistencies, and showing that when Abraham, or when in the past when angels appeared, it's really the ETs, not God or not human beings.
If this book is so correct, how come it's not well known?
Well, it's very interesting to ask this question. Michel Desmarquet didn't know how to use computer. When he communicated with me by email, he had to dictate what he wanted to convey to me, to his niece in Vietnam, so that I could receive the messages. And he really didn't know how to read, how to do a lot of modern things to make the messages more well known. I think right now I'm taking this opportunity to have the messages known by more people, because he really unveiled one of the things that he was not allowed to write in the book, in which really the thing that I was curious to know, and he revealed to me at the end about 4 months before he passed away. So I'm taking on this responsibility to spread the messages.
So you're like Michael Horn is to Billy Meyer.
You can put it that way, yes.
So how do we know that this isn't just a science fiction book? Like, why don't these ETs come and land and prove themselves, make themselves public, in order that people know that this isn't just another UFO story that's trying to get out there and it has no validity?
Well, it's going to happen in the future. Right now, it's not the time yet, because they're giving us the time and the opportunity to straighten ourselves up, to get ourselves to clean ourselves up, because in their mind, it's better to have ourselves to learn our own, giving some kind of having their directions, and to learn our own, than just have them to appear and say you are doing everything incorrectly. Let us to help you to get things in order. And for example, if I were to learn a mathematical problem, I would learn much better if I have the general concept or general direction, and I find my ways out to solve the issue, the problem on my own, than if my parents just told me how to solve the problem. So they're giving us the opportunity to learn on our own. And then when things go into the wrong way, they might appear in the future. And I think that will happen. When that happens, everything will be known as well.
You and I have to take our final break. Please stand by. Samuel Chung is my guest, and this is the X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard, Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern, right here from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away. Samuel Chung is our special guest, and Samuel, I understand that they don't want to interfere, that they want us to kind of solve our own problems, but this planet is in dire straits. We need help. We have global warming. We have sick. We have people who don't have enough food. The housing crisis, the financial crisis, the political crisis. If they're benevolent, why don't they step in and help us?
It actually has given us a solution for that, to help ourselves, which is to do what Gandhi did in India. through nonviolent resistance. What we have, the problems we have today, are mostly caused by money. Money is the root of all evils. If you look at what's happening today, and then the pandemic and everything that happens, and also the wars, who benefit from the wars. And this book really tells people to open our eyes up to really see what's happening around the world. And I really want to emphasize that we can really change ourselves, the whole world, for the better if we get ourselves act together. The poor people, the poor people can really just through nonviolent resistance, we can get together and think about that. When we have a strike, we lose little. The wealthy, the 12 families, they lose huge, they lose big. So they're going to cave into our demands if we do that. And this book actually gives a very good example on what happens on another planet, in which it's very similar to what's happening right now on Earth. Right now, we have a lot of media censorship, a lot of licensed medical doctors cannot speak on certain topics. And we really need to know what's really going on and to get ourselves act together. This is the whole message of the book, to focus more on spirituality and to open our eyes up to really get ourselves together and have a concerted action.
What does the book say about, let me see, karma, cause and effect?
Yes, it really destroys the doctrines of Christianity, according to based on what the church is, the Catholic Church says. There is karma for sure. For example, if someone kills a person and he really would feel the pain of the death of the person he killed, and then in the next lifetime there would be consequences. Most of the times it's really self-inflicted consequences. He would feel so sorry about what he did, so sorrowful that he decided to experience what it feels like to be the person he killed. So he would just be the person he injured. So there was a lot of cause and effect concept in this book, very similar to Buddhism, but in a very different way. And I think it's more logical, more reasonable to see things that way.
How would this book help somebody personally in their day-to-day life? You know, it seems like it's a little bit of the Bible, it's a little bit of the Meyer story, it's a little bit of a lot of the other UFO stories that I've heard, including the one of the Raelian movement. So how does this book differ, and how can it help people?
Yes, this book actually gives a lot of hope to people. It gives people the meaning of life. Life is actually a learning experience. The main purpose of us living on earth is to learn spiritual lessons, to grow spiritually, not materially, but spiritually. So when we encounter challenges, just take the challenges as a very good opportunity to learn, to grow spiritually, and to respond appropriately to the life challenges. I see we are going to have a huge financial crisis coming up because I study economics, and I know that when the Fed U.S. Fed raises interest rates, there's definitely going to happen, cause a lot of consequences. So when you face financial difficulties or life challenges, relationship issues, you should really look inside of yourself, to look inside for answers. Because when God created humans, he inserted a tiny portion of himself to each one of us. So the kingdom of God is within you. So you can pray, you can meditate, you can have a good night of sleep. So, and always look for answers on your own, not through like an agent, like a pastor or minister at the church. And this is the best way to find answers. Sometimes when the solution helps you to grow spiritually, the solution will be given to you, sometimes in the form of a dream, sometimes by intuition, and never suicide, because when you suicide, you're destroying the contract, before you were born, you saw, you previewed your life, and you agreed to come into this life form to learn spiritual lessons. But when you encounter difficulties, when you decide to suicide, you're destroying the contract. You're breaching the contract. So you have to retake the lesson in another lifetime. So never suicide. You just respond challenges by looking answers inside of yourself.
Samuel, we've come to the time when we must say so long, but I'd like you to give the X-Zone Nation your final thoughts. What message would you like to share with them right now?
I would really like to tell people just not to focus too much on the mainstream media, because a lot of the mainstream media are actually controlled by a few families. Just look for answers by searching online or by listening to your show, to be open-minded, to listen to what others have to say about the paranormal, how the world is operating. And being a Chinese myself, I get the opportunity to access information that the average English speaker wouldn't normally have access to. So just look for messages that resonate to you, and look inside for answers.
And could you please give our listeners and viewers your website one more time?
It's chinasona.org/Thiaoouba, capital letter T, HIAOOUBA.
Samuel, thank you so much for joining us. Continued success, and I look forward to the next time you and I meet back here in the X-Zone. Until then, stay safe.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Good night, sir.
Good night.
All right, X-Zone Nation, that's it for tonight. I'll be back tomorrow night at 10 o'clock as once again we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X-Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern, right here from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario. To my studio producer, my good friend Craig West, thank you. Mac Alexander, my director of international programming, thank you. And to my wife and my very best friend, Laura Rogers, who is also our senior executive producer, thank you, sweetheart. Put the coffee on. I'm coming home. So until tomorrow night, everyone, always remember to keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night, everyone.